Okay, title of this video is what's on here. I have no desire to fit in, and I don't know if that's been playing on my mind so that this come up, but certainly since I've had it done I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about goth and these words. And if you see any of my older videos of talking about the goth subculture and everything, you'll know where I'm coming from, because I'll probably touch on one or two of the bits. Yeah, I think it's the older you get, and there is, like I said, there's lots and lots of old goths out there. Sometimes I think older goths probably get a bit of a bad press. They're looked on as like poke, which sometimes the older goths can feel that the younger ones are going upwards, poke. Maybe we need to sort of come together and interweb in the middle somewhere. I suppose that's life, the younger and the older in whatever. But with this, I've no desire to fit in, and really I have no desire to fit in. I know there's lots of goths, young and old, that have that same desire. Goth, but in a way no desire to fit into the stereotype. There's been a lot knocking around about stereotype goth, not stereotype goth, whatever. I'm not responding to any of that we're doing this one. This is something that is within me, and I've touched on this before, and I go back to the beginning, and I think it's the beginning of most subcultures. Well, while we're looking at this, we might notice why some subcultures have tended to disappear over the years. Yeah, go back to the beginning, and goth, I think, was no different to any other subculture, especially at that time. I'm not really into modern subcultures and how they come about, but I know at that time our lots did, and a lot of it was to do with the 60s. There was suddenly this big surge and this big change came around, especially I know in Great Britain it did. It was this massive change. Everything was changing, that just over the spectrum. It would. I'm not a big 1960s fan, to be honest, but it was an exciting time of change. So we look back at 60s, 70s, 80s, we'll sort of go there. And a lot of the change came about because probably, especially younger people, there was a lot of, yes, I'm in a society, whether it's your British society, your American society, or whatever, it's a society of people, and there'll be similar but different. And yeah, there was the British society with rules, regulations, the way you did things and you didn't do things, and blah. And a lot of it come about with the younger generation going, I just don't want to be in this bloody rat race. It's fine. Yeah, it was fine. But don't want to be in this bloody rat tunnel, this rat race. and everybody was trying to just step outside of it. You had to still use it. I think if anybody says, "Oh yeah, we stepped right out of it," but it's a load of cobblers, because even to today, that society is still there and it runs whichever country you're in, basically. But there's differences now, and as younger ones we thought, just want to step out of it and do things different and have a different way, and the way we can look at things, the way we perceive things, whatever. And it went in different directions. If you look right back, the first ones I ever come across was when I left school, went back home, and it was the mods and rocker period in the UK, mods and rockers. And while I was living at school, and while I lived at school, my mum had moved house to an area, and I loved the area she'd moved to. But when I got home, the area I moved into was predominantly rocker. It wasn't mod, it was rocker. So it was leather jackets, jeans, motorbikes, blah de blah de blah. So obviously you fit into the area that you're in. You're that age, you fit in. Punk. However the transition was, Goth sort of was a baby of punk. And so we had a subculture. Somewhere along the line we called it a subculture. And the subculture was all about being different to these, being different to them, being different to this. Now, however it came about, and the main consensus is it was music. So people got together and said, rather than all this punky stuff, I'm this. And then within liking this music, sort of said, well, we'll dress a little bit different now to associate with this. If you look back at old film clips of clubs in the early 80s and everything in the UK, and you look at it, and it's a bloody mix. It's not like peering in and going, wow, Goths. There was Goths, they were probably all Goths, but there was Goths looking like punks. There was Goths not quite looking like punks. There was Goths looking like new wave. There was some Goths looking pretty much like a Goth, because it was creeping in that way. You looked at a lot of the dancing, and when I look at some of it, I see Northern Soul. It looked like the dancing Northern Soul in some of them places. And one video I looked at, I think, was a big Northern club. So they could have very well still been doing a bit of the old Northern Soul movements and such. So you could see all this subculture taking place. But where I'm talking about not fitting in is because if we go back to the beginning, it was all to do with not fitting in. I don't want to fit into that culture. And if you went to a subculture, maybe thinking, but it's not really me, I don't want to fit into that subculture, let's veer off to another subculture, which in a sense Goth did, punk, and it coming from different places. Now, what I'm talking about, which I'm not going to go into great detail, is a lot of the modern outlook of goth and what goth is, and all these thoughts came from this, where I look back and I thought, yeah, I don't want to fit into the stereotype goth. I don't want to go around where suddenly you walk around the corner and somebody goes, goth. Yeah, I'm quite happy if somebody is watching and susses out, you're goth, aren't you? Because they do. They will sort out in their own mind you're goth. So if you said, oh, what's subculture? And you said, have a guess. They go, goth. Somehow they work it out. And that's done without all the stereotypical stuff. I haven't got great big cure hair. I haven't got all the flipping black makeup. I don't wear all the fancy goth gear and everything. I wear a kilt that is predominantly Scottish in that way. But whatever I do, people suss out goth. Every now and then, because of boots and different bits you probably wear, even rings, this sort of thing, people will think you got a bike somewhere, haven't you? So they think you're a biker, but you could be a biker goth. Lots of goths with bikes. So not only me, but there's lots of people out there in the world that are goth through and through, but I have no desire to fit in, which is what it went back to the grassroots. I do not have any desire to fit in, so goth. But then once you're in there, it evolves and it does certain things and it takes on. I'm a great believer that a subculture becomes, in a sense, a culture. Once it becomes a culture, people like they did before go, sub bloody culture, and you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to get up at 5, you got to go into work, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do. I want a subculture. And the funny thing is about goth, which is made it last, which a lot of people again don't like, is it fractures and you get a subculture within the subculture. But generally they don't tend to go off and say, now we're something totally different, still goth, but give it a maiden name. So we'll say vampire goth, Victorian goth. So that they're still predominantly goth, but they've fractured away from the stereotypical. Was there ever a stereotypical? Because stereotypes are generally built by the media. So the media look at a few goths that are around that are very similar. So if you get a bunch of goths, if you take 100 goths, and out of that 100 there's a certain amount that have all gone, I like that, I like that, I like that, so they've all dressed the same, they will take that bunch and say this is goth, because it's easier to define rather than nitpicking around. So the stereotype goth was born, and I was looking at a video on Facebook yesterday. It was a really good video actually, and I flipping liked it. but boy was it Stereotype. It was all the Stereotype goth. And this comes to the crux of today now. I see this fight between people wanting to be very much the old type goth, people wanting to be the modern type goth, those that want to be stereotype, knocking those that don't want to be stereotype, want to have a bit of individuality about themselves, and it's all like a big flipping melting pot. But there's one thing that has always amused me, and that is that you do get people that are you do get people that are very stereotypical goth. The look, the Hollywood, the old whatever look of a goth. Now, very often they're the ones that, when these things are knocking around the internet, they'll come on and say, and I'm not going to name names, but one person said once, goth is this, goth is that, goth is the other, and all this bloody stuff that's going around now is not goth, and if you are any of this, you're not goth. So it was all to do with what you have in your house. If you have taxidermy, crows, skulls, whatever, doesn't make you goth. It's darkly inclined. If you like doing this, it's not goth, it's darkly inclined. So even to the extent of what you wear, if you wear all this, blah de blah de blah, it's darkly inclined, it's not goth. And then it was coming out with what goth is. Goth is music based. So if you're not back in the 80s, if you're not living the way a goth was in the 80s and dressing the way they were in the 80s and everything, you're not really a goth, you're darkly inclined, or you're just pretending to be a goth or whatever. Now, when I looked at it all, I thought, this is smacking itself in the flipping head, really, because they were saying to be a goth, you got to love goth music. Yeah, it's fair enough. You got to love goth music. You got to love 80s goth music. There's loads of other stuff out, but you really got to love 80s goth music. And all this other stuff is darkly inclined. That's what goth is. Now, they don't realise when they're saying that they're sitting there talking to you, dressed in all this flipping stuff and makeup, looking very stereotypical goth. And if you sort of went round like that and said, well, what's that you're wearing, what's that, why you got that, why, you could theoretically say, well, take that off, get rid of that makeup, blah de blah de blah, wasn't around in the 80s, so we'll call that darkly inclined, shall we? There's that to it. But if it's musically based, And I've heard it said it's music based, it's nothing to do with the fashion, it's nothing to do with the objects and everything you have around you. If it's just music based, as long as anybody on the planet says, I love The Cure, I love The Damned, I love this 80s band, that band, I listen to them all the time, then under that premise, they're goth. Because that's what they're saying. To be goth, you got to love the goth music of the 80s. All the other stuff is just added nightmare around it. So yeah, so then you say to yourself, so if I go to a goth concert with 80s bands on, as long as I go and I'm happy and going, I love this stuff and I'm listening to it, I'm goth, so I don't have to wear all the other trappings. So I could go dressed how the hell I like. I can go in a bloody swimsuit, a three-piece suit, look like I've just walked out the Houses of Parliament, whatever. If you understand what I mean. So it means, how can you sit there looking stereotypical goth, which the stereotypical is made up of 2019 material, things that you would have never got in the 80s. But when people say these things, they don't realise that, oh, hang on, if I'm going to say these things, I better take this off and that off and the other off, and I better get rid of all this other stuff around me because it just weren't there in the bloody 80s. So if you look at the way it's put over, it's all bloody pear-shaped anyway, and it's all to do with being different to the culture, living a slightly different life to the culture, having 1 foot in the culture, 2 feet in the subculture. It still is, but when you're in the subculture and it starts becoming a bit culture, that's when people say, well, I just want to dip a few toes a little bit outside it. And so, yeah, now you have got people that have been in a lot of years and realise a lot of the stuff is just spiel, and the 80s were a long time ago and things change and progress and grow. We're not going to stay the same. Yet the stereotype, and if you want to be a stereotype, fine. That's lovely. Some people can, some people can't. It doesn't suit some people to look that way. If I went to stereotype, I'd look a total freaking dickhead walking around town. And especially if I had the sort of attitude of staring into the millennium and going, I just want to go home tomorrow. I'd look a bloody dodo, wouldn't I? So things do have to change. And I see so many goths out there that have this attitude. I have no desire to fit in. But, so I don't. I will have goth stuff, and I will have goth stuff that's not stereotypical. Other people have a dilemma of, I'm sort of getting older now, or I'm well into it now and I just want to relax and be a little bit more this way or that way, but can I really do that? Can I really? You bloody can, yeah. And you get youngsters that come in that feel, because of pressure from a lot, that you better do this, otherwise you're not really bloody goth. And it's not bloody easy, especially in this day and age when money is scarce and you can't have all the things that some people that are telling you all this have managed to accrue and look the bee's knees. Not everybody can bloody do it, and some people have families or whatever, so goodbye that. I don't have any desire to fit in. You don't have to fit the stereotype. Just be yourself. I've said it before, you just got to be yourself, be as goth as you can be or you want to be. Listen to the music, and yes, have some respect for the 80s music. If you haven't got any, try and get hold of some. The bits you do like, look up the history, know about goth and that. Don't be totally devoid of everything and expect that somebody's going to go, yeah, we can accept you as goth. But like I said, I did the t-shirt, and then I just sat there thinking, and I thought, it's probably saying what I feel inside. I don't have a big desire to fit into the run-of-the-mill. Some people will like that, some people won't. But as I'm concerned, it's bloody tough. I don't want to upset anybody, but at the end of the day, if you're walking around and people that are not goth can sort of suss out that you are, whatever you're doing, you've got to be doing something bloody right, ain't you? What do you think? So I hope that made sense in some bloody way or the other. In a nutshell, it's just, as time goes on, you get older, you'll see things in a different light and realise that, yeah, you can diverse a little bit and be a little bit different. Because you're goth and you wear that little bit of colour, in with the black or something, that's a bit of colour. And I'm not going to say to myself, because I've got that bit of colour, sod it, I'm not bloody goth today because I've got that on. It's bloody tough. So folks, enjoy the rest of the week. Hope it's a bloody good weekend for you. I've got a lovely cup of spicy hot cold soup there. Have fun.